Hello? Your dog jumped out of bed at that hello? Dude, why am I so fucking cold right now? Yo, my house, I keep my house at 73 degrees. What are your all's thoughts on that? Anyone agree with that temp? This is where Europeans are like Lamau air conditioning or something. Or no, or is that just the UK? I remember when we were staying in the UK in Airbnbs for that race that none of them, it was hot as fuck and none of those places had air conditioning. It was actually really hard to sleep. I get called a psycho for keeping mine at 77. I mean, dude, if it was 77 right now, I would feel good. That's the thing. I feel cold right now, and it's 73 in my house. Does that mean, I don't know, does that mean, am I like dying or something? Is this what it's supposed to feel like before you die? European living in the US. I won't live in a use in Europe without AC anymore. Oh, so you've been living in the US now and you're now AC coded? Well, why don't they have it in EU? Is it like is it a climate thing or a money saving thing? Max, have you released a statement on the rap beef? Nah, I'm entertained by it though. Half of the songs have been pretty bad, but a couple of them are fucking boppers. They're real good. Vengeance DH got its nerf finally. Yeah, it's a step in the right direction. Nerfs are hard to talk about with WoW because like the people who are upset the most about nerfs are usually pretty emotional about it and they don't want you to make a reasonable nerf. Like they don't want it to be nerfed well. They want that class to not exist anymore. Like it's that simple. Like most people do not main that class. They usually the people who are the most mad about it are usually people who main that role but not that class, or maybe just don't prefer it. And they don't when they say nerf, what that means to a lot of people, what they want it to mean is that that class isn't meta anymore. Like it's not the meta tank. And that's not what they did. But looking at it though, they definitely nerfed it a little bit. The reality is this. Going into the hardest pulls in the dungeon, you're still going to have 2 charges of all the sigils that matter. And that still makes them better than every tank by far. Like, you're not going to get them as up quickly for the next pack, but, like, you can always charge them up going into a pack that matters. You know? That's definitely important, that you don't have all of that on every pack. That will definitely matter. I think it definitely comes... I don't know. The way I look at it like this, anytime they nerf something and they're still the best, it shows that nerfing them was correct. means they probably... But, like, it's possible to nerf someone correctly and them to still be considered the best tank. Like, the goal of nerfing isn't to make a tank that was the best not the best. It is to bring the tank closer in line with the other ones. So people are like, what are these nerfs? This doesn't change anything. Vengeance is still what you play. That's not what the goal of the nerf was in the first place. Not implying that, you know, they shouldn't or couldn't have nerfed them more or whatever. Like, none of that. Just, you know, I think a lot of people get nerfs really twisted. They just don't really understand it. Max, are you going to try D4 before Mop Remix? When the fuck is D4? May 14th. What time is next Tuesday is season 4? Wait, isn't Mop next Tuesday? Here, let me see. Let me see if Shroudy wants to do it. Ooh, 2 days of D4 right into Remix? Yeah, that might work, actually. Max, Boomie is getting buffed. What do you think? I think it was only a matter of time, and they had to. Because Blizzard said, hey guys, vote on your tier bonuses. Don't worry, you can vote for the most fun one if it's not the most powerful. We'll just buff it so, you know, it's the best one or whatever. We'll retune them. And then they just didn't do that for a few classes. And Moonkin was one where I think they weren't even wearing their new tier or something. There's a few classes that applied to, but yeah, it was pretty doom. So yeah, I think that was the case, and Moonkins are really mad about it, which seemed fair. Yeah, I'll look at the nerfs in a bit. Also, something I want to do today is I want to set up my character for Cata Classic. I'm pretty sure I want to play Survival Hunter. Because I didn't play ranged in that expansion. I only played melee. And Cata's the first expansion I ever played. Heroic Ragnaros was the first, like, end boss I ever killed. And that's what hooked me into the game, so... I have some nostalgia, and I'm thinking about playing it, and if I am, I'm going to have to, like, at least get my character set up and see if I actually want to do that. But yeah, it's like, it's one of the best specs in WoW that has been truly lost. Like, Black Arrow Explosive Shot Survival Hunter was... And maybe I'm wrong, by the way. Like, maybe it's my nostalgia speaking. But, like, I felt like that was so fun. You just cast Explosive Shot procs, you had a Black Arrow dot you used on a cooldown, and then you spent with Arcane Shot. It was very simple. But fun. And that's how I remember it, but I'll play it a little bit and see if it still feels that way. And they turned that spec into a melee spec that no one wants. Are you joining Goated? I'm a free agent at the moment. All I know is I don't want to raid lead anything. I just want to play in a guild and not say anything and just game. So I can talk to my chat. I really enjoyed survival in season 3 of Dragonflight, and I did like the whole 0 to 3.3k once you hit 23 plus, and people respect the style of class and understand how it's played. Yeah, you know what? No one played survival before season 3 of Shadowlands. Like, seriously, no, like, no one. It was the most underplayed spec in the game by a mile. And then I was thinking that, like, more people would play it after that, even when it wasn't the best thing in the game, and that just hasn't been true. Can any of you fine chatters give me a daily no, 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 no. I was hoping that the War Within was going to change survival back to ranged. You know, that's an interesting thing. I wonder if that would be a welcome decision. My initial thought is everyone would be really excited, but then it's kind of like how when Enhance, when people were saying, like, I still never really understood this argument. They're like, the problem with AUG is that there's only one support spec, so they need to make a bunch more. It's like, that makes no fucking sense. You guys are mad that there's a support class in every key. Why does it matter if it's only one spec and it's 3 instead? Like, what? Like, you know, do you guys remember when people were saying some dumbass shit like that? And then it was, and then one of the main rebuttals for it, outside of that just being ridiculous, is, oh, well, Enhance, like, a bunch of people who really like Enhance's gameplay would just, their spec would just be gone forever. Now it's a support class. I feel like that's the same with survival. Like, part of it is probably they want to feel fulfilled in their decision to do that previously. There's, like, survival fills a fantasy of being kind of melee, so they went with that. But there are people, and it would just be like their spec is gone forever. And, like, if you want to play Ranged Hunter, there's 2 other versions. You stopped raid leading. Did Max say he's leaving Liquid? What the fuck are you guys talking about? All right, anyways, I'm going live. Hello. Hello. Nice hoodie, thank you. I'm all Star Wars'd up. I got the full fit on right now. I still have like I'll be honest with you actually. Here, let's go to my Twitter. You know, I tweeted the other day that, like, they sent me a bunch of shit. Bro, it's still there. Like, my kitchen, I'm so lazy that my kitchen table hasn't been cleaned off since I was forced to take a picture of all my clothes and tweet it. So I just, like, wake up and then I just walk over to my kitchen table and I just get dressed with these clothes. And then I just keep repeating that until it's gone. Woo! Hey, Max, how do you get your beard to look so good? Literally nothing. Literally, and I mean literally nothing. I do nothing. I don't use beard oil. I don't, like, use special beard shampoo. I don't do anything. And I went to a Kings game with Touchpad Warrior. I don't know if you guys know who that is. He's a, I'm sure a lot of you do. He's a WoW streamer. He's got a big old red beard, giant red beard, touchpad warrior. Giant red beard. Well, I'm just listening to myself. That's good. Love that, love that, love that. Okay, so this is his beard, right? Okay, well, I think you just saw...
Hi, my name's Touchpad Warrior.
There we go. So that's his beard, right? All right, so, like, me and my friends were at the hockey game, and Touchpad was there. And he was like, they were like talking about his beard and my beard, and they're like, you guys have two of the best beards in the stadium. And I'm like, do not put my beard next to his beard ever. Like, he's got it like fucking shaped, and it's 10 times longer, and it looks like well kept. And I believe his wife, girlfriend, not sure, his partner is a hairstylist, I believe. So she like upkeeps his beard constantly, or maybe he does because she... Anyways, he was talking about like the special beard shampoo he uses, and I'm just gonna go forward a second so the pause screen isn't as bad. That one's much... This is seductive. Maybe another second. It's okay. There we go. And he said, like, apparently beard shampoo will, like, wash your beard without removing the face oils from your face. I don't know how the fuck it works. Anyways, his beard looks way better than mine, and he does a lot. Although, I will say, I did a commercial shoot the other day, and there, obviously, hair and makeup was there. And the guy was telling me, like, oh, you have really, really nice skin. And I'm like, damn, thank you. I do nothing with it. And I just remember one time Suki was at a shoot with me, and she heard someone say that, where they were like, you have excellent skin, like you have really good skin. And then she gets so tilted because I don't know if you guys are familiar with Korean facial care, but it's like a whole ass fucking thing. Like it is like a religion to them almost. And I do absolutely nothing to take care of my face, and like she's tried in the past to like buy me facial care products and shit, and I just it's not part of my routine. I just don't really do it. I don't really care. Whatever. I'm sure it's better for me to do it. I just don't do it. So her seeing me get complimented by the hair and makeup people like every time I get it done while also putting in zero effort just sent her to the moon. Do you wash your face? No. I take showers and shit, right? But do I like specifically wash my face before I go to bed and when I wake up? No. Fuck no. It's time to start the day or time to go to bed. I don't have time for all that shit. Ain't no way. A lot of people do that though. You brush your teeth? Yeah. I brush my tooth. Wait, what is... Is she eating her foot? What are you doing? Yeah, I fucking see you. Okay. My girl. Max, have you seen Yip's real-time button tracker on stream? It's from the future. Nah. Yo, Yip's UI is fucking terrible, though, so we'll pull that up just for that. Let's see. What is his stream called? Oh, there it is. It's live. Let's check it out. His real-time button tracker? What do you mean? Is it that thing? Yeah, doesn't... I've seen someone else do that before, too. Even the mouse moves? Yeah, honestly, I just don't really... That doesn't do anything for me. His UI, though... is respectably simple, but it is ass. Like, it's beyond ass. Yeah. What do we got here? Ooh, Shroud's playing New Vegas? That's fun. That was a hell of a game. Man, you know what? I really like Fallout New Vegas, and it is my favorite Fallout game, but I'm almost ashamed to say that online because of how completely insufferable it seems most people on the internet are about liking Fallout New Vegas. Like, the average Fallout New Vegas enjoyer you see on the internet is just, like, only wanting to demean other games that weren't as good as their favorite game. It's despicable behavior. Very cringe. Hi, Lily. So basically the WoW community, they don't strike me as the WoW community. Do you know who New Vegas enjoyers remind me of? Book readers giving negative reviews of a TV show coming out about a book before they ever watch it. Like, that's the vibe. How, you know how, like, book readers can just be completely insufferable about that kind of stuff? That's the exact same vibe, yeah. Why is Reptar over there looking all cute? Is he? He is looking all cute. Speaking of reviews, what do you think about that Helldivers drama? Oh yeah, so Helldivers came out for a while and was really popular. And then everyone liked the game, but Sony made okay, so Sony from the very beginning of the game made you just make a PlayStation account to play Helldivers. This would have not been an issue if it was the case back then. But because, like, you just make a fucking account and play for 30 seconds and no one really cares about it. It's because it happened afterwards where people have already loved the game, and what happened was, like, PlayStation's thing was getting overloaded or something, so they just removed the need to do that because it was causing problems, and they just enabled it back when they fixed it. That's all that happened. But in the meantime, a lot of people played it, and, like, also there was the thing that I think genuinely people having an issue with made sense was people in some countries couldn't get access to it. But for me, the people, if you weren't arguing that point, it was the people that were, like, had no issue with it. They just had to make an account now, and then they, like, went on an outrage fit on social media and, like, negatively reviewed the game, which affects Arrowhead, which is the dev who had nothing to do with that. I don't know. I think there was some valid reason for all of that to happen. I just think that people who, like, review bomb games and do all that shit are just, like, in general, the, like, internet warriors that just go out of their way to, like, you know, cancel games or all that stuff. That just in general just bothers me. Like, it just seems extreme, especially because, like, making a PlayStation account in 30 seconds didn't I don't know. I'm not super involved in the whole thing. I just have an aversion to people like that on the internet review bombing games. Like the Last of Us 2 people, the people who played that game for an hour and didn't like one story decision, didn't play any of the game, and just, like, turbo negative reviewed it. Just people like that. The review bombing worked, though, made Sony change their mind. Yeah, sure. I still find it all pretty insufferable. But I also probably wouldn't have cared if I never had to just see it on my timeline all day. They train their players to work together towards a common goal. Let's go. Are you ready for 10.2.7 tomorrow? Oh, is that actually coming out tomorrow? I thought, okay, I get so confused. Season 10.2.6, Season 4, 10.2.7, and MOP Remix are 4 different release dates. Like, I associate 10.2.7 with MOP Remix, but MOP Remix is coming days after that, or a week after that. And 10.2.6, to me, means Season 4, but 10.2.6 came out like a month before Season 4. So I just get all that shit mixed up. So what is actually changing tomorrow with 10.2.7 exactly? Is there like some class changes or something? Just story stuff? Sweet. There is a balance patch. Dragonflight class tuning May 7th. Okay. Well, okay, so is this all of the class tuning? Like the post that I've already... Well, I actually haven't read all of this. I just saw the Vengeance one. Yeah, we'll look through this in a second. Do we have Cata downloaded? No, we don't. Good shout, actually. What would it be? Cataclysm Classic? We are going to have to young install this. Probably shouldn't take too long. Oh, wait, I'm making it on EU. Why is my... Wait, what? I mean, that doesn't really matter, right? It's the same thing. Whether I choose to hit play or not, doesn't matter. Or do I just play EU? Yeah, let's just play on a horrible ping for no reason. That's hype. Brewmaster lost damage but gained survivability. Is that good? I think I saw a picture of a Brewmaster doing like 400k overall in a dungeon without an AUG in it. That's a big old fucking number. See, people will probably look at this and just be like, why would you ever nerf Brewmaster when people aren't playing them as meta? But that's never the point. I mean, like, because things could change instantly, right? Like, you could end up just playing a class, and, like, you generally just want the tank's damage to be balanced. Not saying that they couldn't have done other things with that, but, like, let's say Brewmaster. All I'm saying is Brewmaster maybe needed a slight damage nerf and needed a small survivability buff, but then people could just be like, why would you nerf it at all? Because it's not meta. And it's like, that's not really the point. What is it? They were doing a lot of DPS anyway. Brew has always been historically high DPS and squishy. Yeah. I mean, they had other tanks had like things that was true about them as well, but then they get changed, right? Like, for example, Prop Paladin was always the class with really insane off healing and utility. This has been true for like 6 or 7 years. But they were really squishy to make up for that, right? Because if they were tuned to be defensively as powerful as the other tanks with all that utility, you would just always play them in rating, of course, and then that became true, and so you just always play them. A tank should not be squishy, honestly. It's relative to other tanks. Like, tuning a tank's damage intake is actually pretty fucking hard. Because you want yourself in challenging content to not survive with active, like, to basically instantly die without active mitigation, which is fair. And then, like, also when you have active mitigation, they want to challenge you and give you time to use your cooldowns. And finding that line is probably pretty hard between all 6 tanks, which is why sometimes they can feel squishy. But without homogenizing them, you'll always have them feel differently in different content. Like the Blood DK thing, right? Like, Blood DK and Raid is, like, always an unkillable juggernaut. Like, you cannot die as a DK in DP or a tank DK in a Raid unless you fuck up real bad or your other tank fucks up. But in dungeons, it's always the same thing, right? Like, sometimes you can't live the grouping of a bunch of mobs on a certain key level because they have like some ramp up time to like get, in the flow of blood decay. But if they ever fix that and they were unkillable in Mythic Plus too, especially now that they fix their damage, you would just always play that too, which, Dungeons are infinitely scaling anyway. Yeah, but true. But different classes hit like that infinite scaling cap of their class earlier. Although I will say that tank balance has always been historically misrepresented because like tanking above all other roles, if you are a tank player, it is more common for you to just play whatever the best tank is rather than like main a certain tank more than any other role. Like healers and Mythic Plus are becoming more like this, but tanks have been like this for like 10 years and it's just comes with the territory, right? So if you ever see a good tank, like whenever you see the tank meta, like people will always just play one tank. And even when it's been its most extreme, like BFA, Prot Warrior Season 4, Blood DK in Season 3 and Season 4 Shadowlands, you're like, oh man, this class is so much better. But in a lot of cases, if you were to put like now on literally any other tank, their group would still be exactly where their group is. It's just that like because tanks play everything, they're always going to gravitate to the best one. And like sometimes there are actually huge imbalances between tanks. Like currently, I think Vengeance Demon Hunter's ability to stop things is just insane. Like I don't think Vengeance Demon Hunter is like historically the most broken defensive tank or offensive tank. I think both of those things have been trumped in the past. It's literally just the reliance of stops on the game at the moment, and being able to have one person just single-handedly take care of it is by far the most broken thing about this class. A combination of too many things needing to be interrupted. Yep, we had a big talk. I won't repeat it, but we had a big talk about this on the podcast last week as well, about the need for stops and maybe a design experiment to understand the issue with them. It like very much mirrors the raid problem. Weak auras exist, and so they have to design mechanics because they know weak auras exist, which like over time leads to a big imbalance between people who are using those weak auras and are good at the game versus people who maybe don't have them and are not as good at the game, and like how you make the content enjoyable for all of those people. It's very similar with stops. They've added more and more stops to the game, especially since class and spec trees. And because of that, they have to make more things stoppable in a dungeon pack. So when you run into a group that doesn't stop well, which is lower key level groups or people who, don't really care about being good at the game, they're just playing it because they want to, right? They're not like super try hard about it. Those are the groups that feel really, really alienated because like the packs just actually do so many things. And if you're not stopping them, then, big difference in skill level stuff. So my solution was just to make a dungeon where nothing can be stopped. And I would love to see what Blizzard actually intends you to deal with on every pack. There's no stops. Just one dungeon, not the whole season, not the game. Just one dungeon. You can't stop anything. And Blizzard, show us what you think is a reasonable amount of mechanics to be happening on a trash pack. Because, like, two things are true. Like, having a million things happen at once just makes the game bad. But also having the mobs do nothing, which is what you can kind of achieve by having really well-coordinated stops, is also bad. So, like, to have the dungeon packs feel unique and not bullshit, I would like to see what they actually plan on happening and how to play around it. And also, that kind of sounds fun. That would just turn the mobs into a bunch of target dummies. What turns the mobs into a bunch of target dummies is you pulling a million things and just stopping everything that happens, right? It would be the opposite of that. Like, every pack would have a certain amount of things. You're assuming, right, when you're saying that, potentially, that When I'm saying you have no stops, is you still have the total amount of things that are happening right now. You just can't stop them. But that's kind of the point. That's not what would happen, right? The reason there are so many things that happen now is because you have so many stops, so many things happen, so you have something to use those stops on. The reality is if you couldn't stop anything, there would be significantly less things, but it'd be interesting to see how creative and challenging the things would actually be on the pack that they intend for you to actually deal with. Because right now it's hard to tell. It seems like they make, it's like mechanic that goes off, and then it's like mechanic that can be stopped. And they make the things that can be stopped increasingly more dangerous because, like, you're supposed to stop them. It's like, you know. Did Dratnos give a good summary of the first 30 minutes of the podcast? You already know the answer to that, or else you wouldn't be asking me that. Give every mob dodgeable abilities like in Plunderstorm. I think that'd be fine for an experiment. I think in every dungeon that would get old. Max, did you catch any of the AWC? Nope. What happened? Someone recap it for me. On both regions, underdogs won it. Woo! Le Pump first? Who the fuck is Le Pump? Dippy's team? Don't know who that is. Alright, well, someone won. That's cool. We like that. So are people happy with Season 4? I think so, yeah. Well, I mean, it had some bugs right away. I think the general sentiment seems to be that as long as you understand that Season 4 exists and it did not take the place of a regular season, it was purely an extra thing, which I know is true, then it's kind of hard to dislike. Because, like, even if you're like, okay, you know, there was like a few bugs, would you argue that you would rather just be still doing a Myrdrasil? I think there are a few guilds maybe that don't like doing the faded stuff or awakened stuff that make that argument, but I think the vast majority of players would. And this is coming from someone who's not playing this patch at all because I don't find it interesting. I just think, generally speaking, I think people enjoy that there is a new season happening, right? In some way. But there are people who dislike it. But it seems like that's the thing. Like, it's like if you wanted to just chill until the next expansion, but you're struggling keeping your guild alive because you have to have people log in for Awaken and you can't just do the old content, you know? Seems like it's generally liked, yeah. But there's a meta problem. Dude, okay. Dude, when will Mythic Plusers realize that there will always be one of those? Like, do you guys, like, I know it's just like, but every season when you complain about the meta, does it ever just occur to you that that's just like how this shit works? The only way that will ever, like, really make the meta not a problem in Mythic Plus will be a solo queue system. Because as long as you can pick your group, like everyone talks about, like, oh, like, these classes, forget about the ability whether classes can or cannot compete with the best comp. The reality is the perception is always that. right? And here's why the perception is that. Because it affects your ability to play the game. It affects your ability to get invited to a group. Like, how well your group does when you get invited is one thing. It's like, if you are able to get invited to a group, that's, like, pretty much fine. And that's why having a meta that's, like, more forgiving, I guess, is good. But, like, if you just were able to, like, hey, I want to do Mythic Plus, I'm going to queue for it just like every other spec, it would just be a complete non-issue that some classes are always going to be a little bit better than other classes, or a lot better. Doesn't matter. Same thing. Regardless of whether it's a little or a lot better, you still don't get invited. If you're an Ellie Shaman right now, you absolutely crank dungeon keys, but I bet it's hard to get invited, even though you're probably pretty close to whatever's best. And that's just a random class. Doesn't have a great raid buff. You could argue whether raid buffs even need to exist in Mythic Plus at all, but that's all it is. If you're a random person making a Mythic Plus group, you might never invite an Ellie Shaman all season because you just have 5 people sign up of a spec that you've played with a million times and you perceive to be better, or it is better, but very slightly. But there's actually not a logical reason for them to invite the Ellie Shaman. But if they just queued in with an Ellie Shaman and they were the same rating as them, which is why they queued in together, they'd probably do just as good as anyone else. Maybe even better than the Fodom guy playing the class that they're not good at yet, but got invited because of their class color. I think people would have a much more broad understanding of classes in this game rather than what you're supposed to invite in every season. Meta is not the problem. People are just bad at the game and blame it on the meta when they don't get invited. That's not true, man. Let's say you are a fucking, I'll just make up a spec, a goated whatever the not #1 thing to invite in that spec is. It is very reasonable to log in, want to play the game, and it takes 30 to 45 minutes to get invited to a key instead of instantly because of the actual meta or the perception of the meta. That means that it is like 5 to 10 times harder to actually play the game and do the content you want realistically. And that is annoying. Like, that totally makes sense why people would hate that. Run your own key. Even running your own key still has, like, you know, huge issues. Like if you want to play the game and you want to push points or whatever, right? Like, you're not always just playing your own key. You could play your own... Guys, how much... I don't know how to ask this. How much faster do you think you'll rise the rankings of IO if you exclusively only push your own key versus apply to a bunch that you need to over and over again? If you play a meta spec, you don't even need to sign up for homework keys. You can just sign up for keys that are exclusively score for you and get invited every time versus having to spend most of your time timing keys you've already done. Like, someone could make up a number, but it's infinitely slower. You think they should rework DK? Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay, well, what does rework mean? Are we talking like Shadow Priest losing Shadow Orbs kind of rework where like they're totally redoing the spec? I don't know if DK needs that. I think... Here's the issue I have with DK. Number one, their class tree is ancient as fuck. Needs some huge working on. Frost needs to make Breath more accessible or make it something that can't be played infinitely and just does a ton of damage over 30 to 45 seconds at the absolute most, or even less. Unholy seems to have like some weird situation where runes and runic power... Like, runes and runic power feel good. And then on top of that, wounds just kind of feel like they're there. I don't know. Like, right now, if you just remove wounds from the spec, I don't think it's better. Like, it would have to be replaced with something more creative. But it just seems kind of ancient as well at this point. And then also there's some resource capping issues. But I imagine that would be dealt with by dealing with the wounds problem and just re-looking at your entire resource economy because of that. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, there's another thing too. They clearly gave them this insidious chill thing to like give them a raid buff. but it's just not powerful enough. Like, that's the thing I don't get. Like, I know it's not as binary for them as like, oh, well, now you have a button that puts you in a raid. Like, sometimes it is. Like, sometimes they just give you Arcane Intellect. Or maybe the other way to look at it is like, you've had Arcane Intellect for 20 years now, so like it's just part of the game. But yeah, I don't know. I'm starting to think it would really hurt the immersion and theme. But I wonder what it would look like if, like, clearly their goal for raid buffs when they're asked about it is, in a 20-man mythic raid, we want you to bring one of every class. And it does do a thing. It does solve that. And that helps class diversity in making every class feel like you have a spot in some raiding guild, right? Shout out LA Shamans, Resto Shamans, and DKs on fights where you can't grip. Or DKs in the new expansion where you have a 5-minute cooldown that shares a CD with your pot enchant that anyone can use that grips a target to you. Raid buffs need to be either disabled in content that is not raid, which I think is an immediate non-starter because like that just ruins Blizzard's whole theme of that, you know? Like they like people going out and doing world content and just casting Mark of the Wild, so that also includes dungeons, buffing your party members. I doubt this will ever happen, but if that doesn't happen, which is likely, they just need to try harder with balancing them and make it good enough to where you bring one to a raid and then it's no better than that. Like some of them could be nerfed in half and you would still have to bring one to a raid. But then them being that good makes them like feel required in other content because it just gives them such a leg up over other classes, which is weird. Per player strength of raid buffs should increase with size of group. Oh, interesting. So like I see. So in a let's say Mark of the Wild is a 3% damage increase and a 1.5% damage reduction in a 20-man, but in a 5-man it's, you know, a quarter of that. See that, yeah. See, I think where Blizzard would stop you there is like, would you even bother buffing yourself out in the world if like you were just giving yourself like a 0.5% buff? Like you wouldn't even, you'd just be like, why is this button in my spell book? And some people play the game like that and never do any group content. Just make it 10% in the open world. Who cares? Yeah, you could get weird with it. I don't know. I still think in Mythic Plus it is maybe focused on a little too much. Like, I think druids get brought to dungeons maybe a little bit more in this expansion because they also have Mark of the Wild. You could argue that with mages with Arcane Intellect, but I bet in every scenario where you brought a mages expansion so far, you could remove Arcane Intellect and you still bring them. It's kind of the same issue with raids. Like, if you removed the raid buff thing, you would just see other classes brought, or you would just see classes brought for a different reason. If it wasn't raid buffs, it would be their defensive capability. If it would be... I think Blizzard really, really cares how balanced dungeons feel at a 20. Or I guess a new 10, where you get the portals. And I think after that, I think they don't give a fuck. Because by tuning for that, they get like 97% of the people who interact with Mythic Plus, and then they just kind of let infinite scaling do its thing. But it's affecting those keys because of people's perception. I think much less. Like, I think you're definitely more likely as an off-meta class to get invited to a weekly 20 for loot than you are like a 28, right? But like, does perception of the MDI or TGP or what the high keys do, is that also affect people's decision to invite you to a 15 or a 20? Now a 5 or a 10? Yeah. It does. Probably not to the same extent, but it's the same thing, right? Like, if you're Tommy and you're putting up your weekly 20 and you know that the best comp is whatever, right? Like, and you list your key and you immediately
it's a chicken before the egg thing, right? Like, you're going to see 20 people sign up, and most of them are the best comp, so you're just like, why wouldn't you take that? They're the same IO score as the off-meta spec. Why would you choose the off-meta spec? It's just right there for you, right? I would say that's more of a community problem than a game problem. The only way to solve that community problem for you is just to give you solo queue. I really think solo queue Mythic Plus would be great. I think it'd be great. I think it has some downsides. I think the upsides vastly outweigh it. But that probably won't happen. They've been asked before. I just want to log on and blast keys. Solo queue would help with that. Yeah, I think one weird downside would be right now, if you want to play dungeons, you have a way to instantly get invited. It's by playing the right spec. If you were playing solo queue and you weren't a healer or a tank, you would have the same time to get invited as everyone else, but like it would be way slower than playing a Fodom class. Like right now, most people who play dungeons play Fodom classes at above a 20, and they know they can just kind of get invited right away. And that goes away forever, which also means like yeah, okay, you'd see more balanced groups, whatever, but like, would you see less people doing Mythic Plus because the time to get into a group goes from, if you want to put the effort in, goes from 0 to potentially like 20 or 30 minutes. Have you guys heard of like solo shuffle queue times? I bet it would be the same. You're just hard gated by the amount of healers and tanks. And then you'd see a little bit of a balancing because more people would tank and heals just so they can get quicker queues, but I mean, it pretty generally would stay the same. See, the thing is right now, if you want a shorter queue time, you have a choice. You just play another spec. Some people are open to that, some people aren't. But like in solo queue, you don't. So you just only have long queues. And maybe you just don't do dungeons at all if the queues are 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Now would be the perfect time to implement solo queue to see how it does in a meme season at the end of the X-Pack. Yep, that's why a lot of people wanted a lot of experimentation in Mythic Plus. You could have solo queued maybe, but you could have also just done affixes. You could have done, and I think that's like a little disappointing. Like I guess you could argue they're trying out the new Mythic Plus Keystone system, which is definitely a dub. Ironically, largely because to do farmable keys to get loot and to fill your vault, you do keys with one less affix on it, which is the thing that people want to have worked on the most. But I don't know, maybe that'll do it, right? Like, I guess in reality, what you want from Blizzard in Season 4 is to experiment and try things so they learn more what the community wants from the game. And I think they did. Right? Like, hey, it turns out they're probably getting a lot of data right now. And I bet that data shows that there's a lot more people running 9s than 10s. I wonder why. It's probably going to be way less. It's probably going to be an infinite amount more people doing 9s than people did 19s instead of 20s last expansion. I wonder why. Maybe it's because you don't have a fucking awful extra affix on there. Right? I don't, if that doesn't paint the picture as clear as possible to them, I don't know what will. Turns out the game gets more fun to play when you remove one of the affixes. That's a crazy thought, right? Nines aren't lacking that affix by accident. You're probably right. Which would acknowledge that Blizzard understands that people would prefer to play without them, which is like, what are we doing here? You know? What's happening? My friends don't even want to do 10s. It sucks. Get new friends. Abandon all of them. What is it? Never agreed with the affixes provide variety take. It's such a small difference compared to how unfun it makes the game overall.
Oh, so you don't agree with the affixes provide variety take. You agree with the trade-off isn't worth it. I think I'd be with you there. Like, saying that affixes don't provide variety is, like, objectively false. And I would even argue that, let's just say, like, I don't think the best solution is to remove all affixes. I actually think Mythic Plus is worse if all affixes are gone. Every key you log in, every week you log in, there's no any affixes, there's no fortified, no Tyran. They're just the same exact keys every single time. I think that's boring as fuck in a few weeks. So I think them adding variety is good. I just think they could be way better at doing that. Right? Like they're not, like, they exist for some reason. They're just solving it like the worst way possible. You don't know Mythic Plusers? Maybe. Maybe you're right. Two things that I hear Mythic Plusers say a lot that I disagree with are, we just want to mass pull all the time and have mobs do nothing, and we don't want any affixes. And looking at both of those individually, I think people would immediately rejoice as soon as all the mobs did 0 mechanics and every single pull was pulling 30 mobs, and then you just did a boss. I think that would be really, really sick and fun for 2 weeks, and then it would just be extremely boring because it's just always the same. I think big pulls feel great right now because they happen in limited quantities. The idea that you would want to always do that, I think, would get really boring for sure. And I feel the same about affixes too. Like, affixes fucking suck, and there should be a I think variety is good, and I think affixes provide that in the worst way possible. I think something way better than affixes should exist for that. But I think if you were to just simply remove affixes, like, affixes are gone, nothing to replace it, every single dungeon is just what it is, no affixes, I think it would also be more boring, even though immediately people would be happy. Affixes should be positive, so it's fun differently each week. I think positive affixes could work, but I could also see positive affixes just lending into the same problem as it is now. Oh, it's not a push week. This affix isn't as positive as the other one. Oh, this one gives you a crazy amount of haste. Wait, my class doesn't scale with haste. I don't get invited this week. I could see it, like, having the same impact that, like, Afflicted or Incorporeal had on Warriors a season ago. Like, just in a different way. So I don't know if positive affixes are... The only thing that has ever, like, really worked for me affix-wise is seasonals. But, like, you can't avoid the fact that half of the seasonals were like seasonals are crazy, man. Like, it's hard to think that there was this thing in the game that could make the game so much better when it was done right. Like, every Mythic Plus season that has ever existed would have been better with Encrypted, Awakened, or whatever the Season 4 one in Shadowlands was. And then some people would argue Reaping. And you could argue some other ones too, but just my opinion, those, right? Like, everyone would have been better, but also everyone would have been worse with Thundering or Infested or Beguiling, right? Just fucking so polarizing, you know? There wasn't even, like, very many mid affixes. They were, like, fucking awful or they were great. There was some polar. I guess Prideful was kind of polarizing. You either loved it or you hated it. Was Shrouded the one where you almost always picked your best stat? If Thundering was buffed instead of not touched for like 19 weeks? I just think people aren't trying to do like a raid mechanic every minute in a seasonal, you know what I mean? Like, forget the fact of it buffing you or whatever. Just, like, people aren't just trying to do that. It's like monotonous, boring, repetitive. And then the punishment was insane for sure, but... I don't know why we're doing this Mythic Plus thing again. We've already talked about this a million times. Kind of want to talk to some people today. I also need to set up my Cata Classic character. Could always bring on some more people to yap. Bro, raid shit stays in raids. Let dungeons just be a vibe. So tired of Blizzard. What are you talking about? Max, I'm around if you want some garbage community takes. Yeah. Did you get a group for Cata? Nah. Well, I've been like I've had people offer for me to go to their guild, but I've been like, you know how I am, right? Like, I wake up every single day and YOLO it. It's hard for me to commit and say, like, I'm like, hey, I need a guild to raid it. And then a bunch of people are like, hey, you can raid with us. And then they're like, are you going to play in Cata? And I'm like, yeah. You know? And then it's, like, hard for them to be like, yeah, okay, show up. You know? Because, like, they're probably making a spot for me. But I don't know. I think I'm pretty sure I'm going to do it, I think. But I also might not, I guess. Grab the cats and just say something inflammatory about Mythic Plus and they will go for hours. Dude, should we try that? Should I just, like, pull in Growl and Dorky and just say they over-nerfed Vengeance DH and then just mute my mic, leave my computer, and just let them talk for, like at least 20 minutes? Just talk about how bolstering is actually good. Yeah. Wait, wasn't there a PvP? And I know some of you guys hear the word PvP and you're like, what? But, like, wasn't there an actual interview recently? I swear I saw that posted somewhere. I'm already bored. I couldn't find it. Oh, I guess I could look at the buffs and nerfs. I actually haven't done that yet. Sigil of Silence duration reduced to 4 seconds. So I feel like that's... alone is kind of interesting. Actually, I think that's probably just a good change for the game. Because that also affects PvP, right? Like, bro, who's trying to be silenced for that long? What's going on out here? Although, like, who's playing that in PvP? Sigil silence cooldown increase. So, like, yeah. I mean, silence is definitely turbo broken. So the ability that you'll have... So basically this nerf just means going into any really, really hard pack, you will still have 2 charges of all your sigils for stops. You'll have 2 grips, you'll have 2 fears, you'll have 2 silences. What won't happen now is, couldn't you farm that 3rd silence on the same pack? Is that what people were doing in keys? You probably can't do that, right? That's probably gone. But the thing is they still have... Sometimes silencing things is just like the icing on the cake. Like, if Sigil of Silence just stopped their casts at all, it would still be really powerful, which is what Grip does, and that's what Fear does. So the reality is, going into a pack, a dangerous pack, a Vengeance Demon Hunter has 7 ways to stop cast still. And every other tank has, like, at the most, like, 3, maybe 2. That's still the thing, right? It's just like the initial charges of it at all are really what's oppressive. The only way that Vengeance is going to feel nerfed is if you do like 2 to 3 hard packs in a row. The amount of total CCs you'll be using in those 3 packs is for sure nerfed. I think the main reason that people are immediately up in arms about this is really simple, and I've seen this happen a million times. When people see something get nerfed, most people don't... They just want to see change. Like, sometimes a good nerf doesn't mean that the best tank is no longer the best tank. It's just brought more in line with the others. But the reality is people want blood. People want the class that everyone is bringing to no longer be the class that everyone is bringing just so it is something is new. You know? So Vengeance DH is... I'm not really following the scene, but I'm guessing because of the fact that on really specific pulls you can still go in with that many stops, you're still going to bring them. But that being said, I said they should try to nerf this, not nerf the fun, but nerf the power. I think that's where they're going, right? Like, the ability to have sigils still be reduced by playing the game is still really fun. It's like why anger management's really fun. And you need to have 2 charges for that to feel good and to not feel like a waste. And the fact that it's 2 charges is what makes it fun. But maybe what they'll find out, realizing at one point, is maybe the 2 charges thing is also just, like, always going to make it super OP. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know how they do this. Maybe when you have a class that's that good and you think you have something that's fun and you don't want to remove it, is maybe you just do multiple small nerfs. I don't think people are very interested in, or I guess very confident that Blizzard will constantly be doing small tuning nerfs to Vengeance after this. Because, like, if there was no one big sweeping nerf that made Vengeance dog shit, which I know is what some people want, it's not what they should try to do. They should just do smaller nerfs over the course of 3 weeks so they get it right. Your all's class knows what it feels like when they, like, over nerf something and then, like, you never get buffed to compensate for it. But if you do smaller nerfs over the course of a few weeks, you actually can get closer to your target, you know? Like, right now people read this and they're like, initial reaction is, man, Vengeance Demon Hunter, that's not a nerf at all. I bet this will actually happen, by the way. I bet Vengeance Demon Hunter will still be the tank that people bring. That's my bet. But people are like, it's just a slap on the wrist. It's nothing. I think you're going to notice this a lot more than you think you are next week and the week after. Not saying they're not going to be meta. That's not the point of nerfs. I think you're going to still have it for those first couple pulls. You're going to have, like, a lot less uptime on throughout the course of, like, 10 to 15 minutes. But that's not really how dungeons work. Like, really, it's, like, certain pulls where it really matters. But, and, like, your first pull of the dungeon, everything's always up, and you usually go super huge anyway. But I think this is a little bit more of a nerf than people are expecting. I don't think the silence duration does anything. But the Sigil of Silence cooldown thing and also the Cycle of Binding nerf is pretty... I think that's going to be... Like, the amount of overall uses you get in a full dungeon are going to go down on a pretty good bit. It's also affecting flame sigils with a CDR change? Yeah, true. This nerf means that your average tank will be worse. That's it. What? What argument are you making? So I guess to fulfill your point, you should just always make one tank extremely broken and super easy just so bad tanks will be better. Like all the time. There should be no balance. Just make sure one is... I mean, sometimes tanks are real bad. Maybe you're cooking. And that was actually another one of these things. It's like, if you're a good player, you're like, I love having my life in my own hands, you know? And I love having my responsibility in my hands. I like to carry the group. That's what Vengeance Demon Hunter can do right now. They're pretty self-sustaining, and also they were carrying the group CCs. But, like, at a lower level, tanking is a role that doesn't really... Like... Usually, the tank is such an important role that at a low level, you could feel bad because, like, your tank is too overloaded, you know? So, like, by giving them even more responsibility than they already have with routing and all that stuff, and the fact that if anyone else in the group fucks up and dies, they just still kill the pack, but if the tank dies, everyone wipes, you know? I wonder if that's a good thing, to have tanks have that much responsibility, even though, like, the higher level players would want it. Max, have you properly punished Dratnos yet? For what? Oh, the podcast thing? How do you suggest I should punish him? He has to wear a costume of some sort. Dress up like a bird for next podcast, or else. Okay. And then let's see. So, Balanced Druid. Season 4 2-set now increases the damage of your next Wrath or Starfire by 50%. And... Wait, Season 4 2... I'm assuming this is the 2 and the 4 set. It's just some weird-ass... Or is this both 2-piece changes? It's a 6.5% buff for Boomie. Yeah, but like, okay, the buff for Boomie I don't think is as important as the fact is they just like didn't make their tier good enough. It was like a Blizzard lying situation. Blizzard's like, hey guys, we're totally gonna buff your stuff if you pick it, and it's not good. And then they picked it because of that, and then it wasn't buffed enough. Actually, I mean, they did tune it. They just didn't. To be fair, they did. They just said they would balance it to bring it more in line with others, and they did balance it. It just wasn't enough. It wasn't like they just forgot. They just got it wrong, which is, I think, pretty significant difference between those two things. But yeah, the fact that they weren't equipping it. What was the deal? They were wearing. Were they wearing their current season 4-piece in single target, but they were playing 2-piece in Mythic Plus? Were they wearing 2-piece all the time? Okay. All right, cool. Now they'll use it all the time. Sounds good. Monk damage nerfed. Summon white tiger statue damage reduced by 30%. I'm going to need to see a log on that. Because that's fucking insane. That needs to be nerfed. Let's see. Dungeons. Let's just look at a dungeon log. Sir, rankings. That dungeon rankings? What a fucking meme. Oh, is it just going by score? I don't know, whatever. All right, let's look at Hannah Brew. Okay. They're parsing crazy in, let's look at the dam here. All right. Oh, I mean, why is that doing so much damage? That's fucking crazy. That is I don't give a fuck. Their character's name's Hannah Brew. It's only lasher damage. It just does uncapped AoE. That's high. That's hype. Super hype. Okay, well, that makes more sense now. That's just a really crazy thing to read because of how irrelevant this is for Windwalker. Effectiveness of stagger against magical attacks increased to 55%, was 45. Ooh, that's pretty good. And healing sphere increased. Okay. Ability and auto attack damage increased by 6%. How's the old assassination rogue looking here? The most recent week, let's do statistics, 95th. Let's do Magmarax. Yeah, I guess they over-nerfed it last season then, right? Okay, a little 6%er. Pretty big number. Affliction nerfed pretty significantly, right? Or are those buttons that don't do a lot of damage? They're buffs? Did I say nerfs? I meant buffs.
That's a big AoE buff. Fuck yeah. Destro, a little buff. Warrior Fury. All ability damage increased by 3%. And then they also... Was Fury also in a situation where their tier was bad? And survival. Wait, but they just didn't fix survival? I fucking love that shit. Developers notes. One goal for these changes is to bring Prot Warrior back to the good gameplay it had in Season 4 of BFA. Oh shit, that's not what it says. Is to reduce Prot Warrior's deaths to the dangers that are most likely to kill them, like burst or magic damage. See, that's another scary thing though. Like, if everything in the... Like, this isn't always true, but historically, if everything that were to possibly damage you, like... that in all content was physical and could be blocked, warriors would just be better than every tank all the time. So, like, it kind of makes sense that they're a little weak to magic, but it's like there's so much magic damage in the game that you have to buff it. But it's like what we talked about before, where Prot Paladin made sense when it was squishy as a tank, but it had so much utility and damage. That's like a trade-off, right? Like, Blood DK has, like, really good control, a bunch of grips, and infinite self-healing, and the trade-off is it's hard to live the initial grouping of a pack. And if they ever completely solved that, they would just be, like, you know, like, the trade-offs make sense in a way, right? Like, if they make warriors really, really good at burst and magic damage reduction, you're just getting dangerously close to the territory where they're just, like, fucking brick walls that could never be killed. Right, like that is the trade-off you should take for a Prot Warrior, kind of. Not to say that this isn't a good change, it's just a thought that if like you go too far in that direction conceptually, you could just run into that problem. Okay. There are some talents that warriors have for protection against these threats, like Disrupting Shout, Bolster, or Battle-Scarred Veteran, but it can be difficult to find the talent points for them. Ooh, are they giving you some fucking... some talenty Ps? That's actually the best feeling, dude. I think the best way your class can be buffed is, like, you read a patch note that basically says, like, hey, you have, like, your whole tree filled out. All right, well, we're just giving you, like, 2 or 3 points back, either baked into your class or removing 2-point nodes. And then you're just looking at your tree and you think of all the possibilities where you just add 3 points in your tree. Like, if you were to add 3 to 4 points in any class in the game spec tree, you would have so much fucking power gain from that, and in a fun way. It's not like, oh, my class is randomly buffed by 6%. It's like, oh, I can get this, and I can get this, and I get this. You know, it's like fucking, it's like the best thing you could possibly read. Anyway, let's see if they actually did that. To provide more build flexibility, we're reducing the power of Battering Ram talent and moving its damage and defensive benefits into core abilities, and we're also increasing the damage across the board and buffing. So they're giving you 1 talent point. Right? Battering Ram now increases your auto attack damage and speed by 10% for 20 seconds, while it's 20%, and then they're moving that into their other abilities. Enduring Alacrity, increased stamina, armor by 5, and haste by 2. Okay, Disrupting Shout's cooldown reduced to 75 seconds was 90. And Ignore Pain Healing increased. Devastator damage increased. Ability damage increased. Why did you randomly start reading upward? That's a fucking good point. I finished this here, and then I went to the... Well, okay, no, it does make sense. Because they said they were reducing the power of the Battering Ram talent, so I immediately found Battering Ram. But you are right that that was weird. Like, if you didn't know I was doing that in my head. I just, like, read this and was like, all right, fuck it. Let's just go backwards. Woo! Let's go. All right, let's read the PvP changes. Frost Strike damage increased by 95% in PvP. Let's fucking go, dude. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go, man. All right. What were the PvP comps this week? Actually, don't tell me. Just don't tell me, man. I don't know why I asked. Okay. I think that's all caught up on the old WoW news. We already checked off a few things today on stream. We checked out some WoW news. We talked about Mythic Plus affixes and comps for the obligatory 15 minutes or so. There's a good Tettles Reacto. Ooh, that would let me make food. What did Tettles say? Huge class tuning for Season 4. Oh, wait. How affixes should change in Mythic Plus. I mean, this would be like the 500th time this has been talked about. So if you've watched this, does he have like some new interesting cook, or is it just the same shit? Same shit? Only one way to find out. So true. I love clickbait faces, man. Because you can tell that he went live one day and just made these faces. Like, this is all I think about. Okay? Let me make this bigger. This is all I think about. Okay? Is that he had his camera on and not streaming, he was recording, and he just made all of these faces like looking directly at his camera and then sent them. So there's a video out there that his editor has of him just without speaking going through and making different poses for YouTube videos. It's all I can think about. And that video exists. Which we've shown this before. Let me see. This is what it looks like.
Fuck!
That's when she realized she was live. Yeah, it's hard to look at. I know it's hard. But that's what people have to do on YouTube. I have never done this. I've started to. There is a video, actually it's probably deleted, but Frank wanted better thumbnails. And he was like, "Can you do that?" And I started trying, man, for like maybe five poses, and then I'm like, this is the corniest thing I've ever done in my life, and I turned it off, and that video will never see the light of day. It's just so fucking embarrassing, man. I couldn't even bear Frank to see that. I wanted to spare him and me. I just hate shit like that. There is a Mr. Beast one where he has like 2,500 options for one video from his editing teams. Yeah, that guy's crazy, man. Built diff. See, Mr. Beast is I couldn't even do that one time. I couldn't even like start a video and just be like super fake excited and shit. Like just that alone, like the talking really loud children's YouTube thing. Like I don't think I can do that. Max, when is the Race to World last video coming out? That's not on me. The Botezes play good chess for who they are. I respect that. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Exactly. I fucking love weirdos, man. All right, I'll be right back. I gotta grab some more water. Dude, I wonder if Reptar wants to be the streamer. Frank said I have to censor so many fucking bird cocks. Oh, because my chat was showing on screen. Oh my god. I didn't even think about that. That's so funny. Oh, man. Bro, do you guys see how hard Ella's lounging right now? Okay, Lily's kind of getting in her way. But do you see how Ella's laying down on the couch and her leg is like almost fully standing up on the ground? Like she is fucking, that is peak zonked. Doesn't give a fuck. Max, how come you stole Yips's title? What? Twitch.tv/ is it Yips Live? It's not just Yips, right? Yips TV. Fuck, I should have known that. His title's Yep. Wait, did I steal his title? When did he go live? Did he go live? Did he go live before me? Oh, fuck. I guess I did steal it. I didn't watch his stream before that, but... yeah, fuck. I don't know. I guess I gotta change it. I'm changing it to no. Bro, that Venice DH is slamming. Let's see. Yeah, slamming healing, bro. Dorky, what the fuck are you doing? What are you fucking... You're a rat. You're just sowing discourse. I'm not a rat. That's it. I know what to post in there. I know what to post for this very occasion. Let's go. Just a little bird, that's all. Max, follow your raider. Okay. YouTube stays on top. We are all 100% not weird. True. Twitch L. Twitch L. God, do I really want to make a Cataclysm Classic character, though? Like, do I, though? It sounds like... like, if I... Max, you won't make it past level 12? Oh, Oh, Jesus Christ. I would boost the character. Don't be insane. Jesus Christ, man. All right. Max, I don't know if you know this, but survival hunters have to use season 3 tier to be decent at all in Mythic Plus. It's, bro, just fucking play another spec, you know? Just play, just turn into one of the other hunter specs. One of them's probably good. You know what I mean? Max, who won the rap battle, Drake or Kendrick? Kendrick made the best song, but I feel like Drake had 2 songs that were good. Like, I really liked Family Matters and Push-Ups. Those went hard as fuck, but Not Like That went harder than both of them. But all the other ones were kind of dog shit. I think Kendrick won because the reality is Drake has, like, built up this, like, armor where he, like, was just the guy and couldn't really be memed on for the last, like, 10 years, basically, outside of the Pusha T thing. And I think now it's just, like, cool to shit on Drake. And I feel like because of that alone, Kendrick had to have won. Like, Drake has just been getting shit on the internet the last couple days. Even though I think between the songs themselves, it's actually pretty close. But, like, I don't know. Seems like more people are Drake haters than Drake fans right now, and maybe that's all that matters. Drake getting exposed for his like of kids. I think that's, like, so blown out of proportion. Like, I don't... Like, I don't actually think... Like, I think... Like, genuinely, I don't think that Drake is a pedophile. I don't really know the guy, but I just don't think that he is, you know? But it doesn't matter because he's just getting fucking clowned on, you know? Not gonna lie, I never go to streamers for their opinions on shit like that. That's just me, though. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm white as hell. Like that, I'm so far removed from this whole situation. Like, I don't fucking... Like, part of the whole thing of the rap beef is, like... Is that Drake has, like, basically been accepting white privilege while also, like, trying his hardest to be accepted by black culture and, like, using it just to, like, further his career but not really being a part of it, right? And, like, hey, guess who has absolutely no reason to give his opinion on that? Me. I don't know, like, you know, you want to hear my... Like, I don't fucking know shit. So, you know? A couple of those songs were fucking nice, though. Those were real good. I'm so far removed from understanding any of that drama. Yeah, it, like, revived rap, though. It did. And also, honestly, Twitter has been going crazy. I feel like Twitter's been on the up over this whole thing over the last few days. I feel like that's, like, felt like old school Twitter. What is it? Drake, he was 31 publicly dating an 18-year-old. Yeah, a lot of rich and famous people do that. They do the, like, dating the... I definitely, no matter what, look sideways at anyone who's, like... I don't know what magic number there is. Let's say 27 or 28 plus dating anyone who's 18. Like, forget, like, the legality of it. That's just suspicious. It's just simply weird. But it's not like an age difference thing. Like if someone was 37 and 27, those are two adults, right? Like, you're going to grow into a different person a little bit from 27 to 37, but, like, you're an adult being an adult. Like, an 18-year-old is a kid. And you having enough in common with a kid as a 30-year-old to have a relationship that's anything more than just sexual is really unlikely, and that makes it fucking weird. That's all. Like, how the fuck can you like, it blows my mind that someone that old could relate to a 18-year-old. Like, there's no way. They haven't even, like, gone through college yet. They haven't gone through anything in their life yet. Like, they don't know what the fuck's going on. They don't even know who they are. You know? Definitely turbo sussy to do shit like that. There's no nuance. It's just strange. But it does seem like it's, like, at least in, I guess, like, male culture, it's like a flex almost to be like or at least it's historically has been like a flex to have some, like, young, hot girlfriend when you're old as fuck. But I think over time people are realizing more and more that it's just kind of weird. You know? What is it? Max, my sister's with a 28-year-old and she's 18 and doesn't understand it. She says it doesn't bother her, but I find it weird as fuck. Yeah, I mean, first of all, people can do whatever the fuck they want, you know, it's just like, but you also have the ability to judge that. Like, usually the younger person doesn't understand the situation they're in either, you know? It's probably something they'll look back on and be like, that was weird. Just being naive, right? Age gaps where both people are over 30 are less weird because at that point you assume both people are fully developed, independent adults with life experiences and finances. Yeah, exactly. Like let's say 30 years old and 18 years old is a 12-year difference. Let's say someone is 42 and 30. That means nothing to me. Like, 42 and 30 is the same age difference from 30 to 18. And I wouldn't even blink twice if someone was 12 years apart in their 30s. That would mean nothing. Like, it would be totally fine. Because it's just two adults. The issue is an adult dating a kid, which is what dating an 18-year-old is. It still means something, but it means a lot less. Dude, I may be crazy, but, like, I think it actually means nothing. I actually have friends that are, like, that I knew independently that were, like, 10 years apart in their late 20s and late 30s and started dating for a bit, and it wasn't even kind of weird. They were just, like, two adult friends that I had. You don't even think about it. It's, like, totally fucking weird. Totally normal. To me, though. This is my opinion. Let's see. It's like getting into a relationship with someone who puts up a new TP roll under rather than... It's like getting into a relationship with someone who puts the new toilet paper roll under rather than over. Are you sure you could make the relationship work, but is it worth the risk?
Dude, okay, that's a meme question, but I feel like more people before going into relationships should live. Well, maybe this is true with marriage, although I'm not the best person to ask about marriage, I guess. Never been married, but you gotta like live with someone, I think, before you do that, for sure. Because like there's so much stuff you don't know. Like, here's a simple thing. This isn't probably something to end your relationship over, but like imagine you live with someone that their ideal temperature in the house is legit 10 different than yours. That means one of you is going to be in hell, or both of you are going to meet halfway and be in hell forever. You know? And it seems like something so small, but like that like kind of matters, man. Anything over 70 on the thermostat is cause for a breakup. See, I like the house at like 72. 73, 72. So we would have to break up, right? And that's okay. Someone in chat said, fuck you. Oh my God. Wait, what's more insane? Having your house at like 75 or 65? You guys think 75 is more insane? Guys, 65 is like cold as fuck though. I guess that's the idea, right? In a hotter house, you can only take so many clothes off, but like 65, you just like wear warm clothes or a blanket or something. But then your feet are cold on the ground, but then you wear socks or slippers or something. Max, you live in California for too long? Maybe, yeah. This is the only place I've lived where I've like owned a house and had full control over that, you know? So maybe it's that. Also, California is just like 70 degrees all the time. You've never had full control over a thermostat? I guess I never really thought about it. The dogs in the background are loving whatever temp you have it set to. Do you think dogs care? I've never really asked them what they want. Oh, what did you just... Did you just... Oh, look at that stretch, by the way. With the legs still on the couch and everything. Holy shit. That was a stretch. Oh, he's... Dude, he just went for a stretch and went right back up. That's crazy. Bro, he did a full body length stretch with his legs still on the couch. Fucking crazy moves. Max, if Wildstar came back, would you quit WoW to play that? No. Or continue playing WoW? Well, the good thing about playing WoW is I only like really play WoW for 2 weeks of every season, and then I just go live and talk about WoW. So I would just play the WoW for the 2 weeks, talk about WoW as much as I want, and then play and talk about Wildstar as much as I want. I would just do that. Bro, I'm out of flight stones again. What is this nonsense? How bad is the flight stones thing?
It's like a little better than it was last patch, right? Because they reduced the upgrade cost for dinar items, so it's slightly better, right? But someone in chat said it's not bad. Better than Season 3. The crest cap is more criminal. Would you guys actually have preferred to have 0 crest cap this season? I don't know. That sounds like something... Like, they increased the cap? You guys would know more than me, but... I mean, they did this in Season 4. Last expansion, they didn't cap Valor, so people just grinded +2s for, like, 2 weeks. I think Blizzard cares about the content you're doing. Like, Blizzard doesn't want degenerate crest farming for a bit. Like, the two things they don't want from that... I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that I don't think they... Like, last time there was no Valor cap, you just did really unfun content to cap it as soon as possible. And that was just, like, busy work. And then you had less actual time playing the season because then you were full geared. And it turns out once you have no... Once the carrot on the stick for gear is completely removed, it just takes away from you playing the game a bit. Not that that... Like, every game does that, right? The, Like, your season experience with just a higher crest cap is you basically do the season. It's a meme season, and it's like you get more gear faster. You get higher eye level faster, but it's not instant. Because they don't want the gameplay loop of do unfun, boring content for 2 weeks, cap your character out, and then now it's just gameplay, and all of the gameplay is old stuff you've already done. So you just stop instantly. You know? That's probably the thought process behind it. Fuck time gating. It's annoying as fuck. When will they learn? So would your argument be in a regular season you think Crest should be on cap too? I really think that's a you think you do but you don't thing. I don't think that would be good. I think how it worked in Season 3 was pretty close to how it should be. I don't know. I think it could probably be changed a little bit, but it's like pretty close. I think even maybe if you do Season 3 again, you lower the initial burst of gear for the trade-off of having the weekly resets feel more powerful for longer. I think that would be great. So it still takes the same amount of time to get really powerful. It's just like you're just spreading it out more rather than having it be so initial. I hate time gating my gearing. I know, I hate it, dude. I hate when you log in on the first day of the patch and you don't have every single mythic item. I hate that. I hate that you usually only get a couple per week because of the amount of things that drop. It's time gating, honestly, that you aren't instantly given everything. Fucking hate that shit. Fuck. They don't that's devs not respecting your time. That is artificially inflating playtime metrics for shareholders. That's such a thermostat at 72 take. What the fuck does that mean? That everyone who has their thermostat at 72 is just fucking stupid? Yeah, it's me. Dumb as hell. Max, where'd you get your wallpaper? Target. Just make Mythic Plus a queuable solo queue game like League. Based. Dude, here's the thing I have with Mythic Plus solo queue. Is I think it would objectively be better than what we have right now if you just remove the concept of queue times. I think queue times could make... The queue times alone could make it significantly worse.
I think everything else about Mythic Plus solo queue would be objectively, everything would be better than current Mythic Plus, except for the fact that queues for DPS would probably be a long fucking time. I think that would be, and potentially that would be, I mean, that's a huge deal. Like, that could be enough to kill it. Why it wouldn't be only solo queue, it would be optional. So it's like something you can do with a different rating system, but you can still queue preset 5-mans for high key pushing with your friends. Yeah, you would need both to exist, but probably separate queues. Max, do you intend to play Pandaverse? And if so, what class? I think so. So I did it on PTR when it first came out, but some of the tankers were like extremely OP. As far as I know, they haven't tested it again, have they? They just tested it the one time. Okay, so here's my thought. For me, not for other people. I think the Panda remix is going to be one of the most popular and great things that they've done in retail recently. I think it's really high quality, and I think people are going to fucking love it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, for me personally, because I've already done like the leveling process and stuff like that, I don't know if I'm really looking forward to doing that again, although I probably will do it. What I would love to do is go through and do the heroic rating content and actually have to... I don't think it should take a long time, but I think you should at least have to understand what the mechanics of the boss are and like kind of know how to do them before you kill it. That means killing a boss in like maybe 20 minutes instead of in 10 seconds. You know what I mean? For the average group. Like, I want to at least be able to like appreciate what the boss is trying to do. Like, when we did it in that test, you just... the Tinkers were so broken that you just one-shot everything. You just instantly killed everything except for Dark Animus. But Dark Animus was the most fun because we had to actually figure out how to do it. And it didn't take long. It took like 20 minutes, but, you know. Oh, here we go. That one guy nobody likes 352, the Twitch chatter says, at maximum. The real and honest fact is that the problem with the game is 5-man content as a whole sort of needs to die in a laundry fire. We need to move dungeon content to 10-man, but still keep it 1 tank, 1 healer, and just add 5 more DPS to the group. It resolves issues with buffs, queue times, stops, interrupts, and fixes the will just not bring a healer issue. Would that solve the queue times, though? Wouldn't that make queue times 100 times worse? Because right now, for every 1 tank and 1 healer, you need to find 3 DPS. But now it would be 8. That would be... Bro, you've been cooking way too long. You gotta open your window. The weed smoke's gonna kill you or something. There's too much of it in there. You'd be the first person to die to weed smoke. Isn't a dungeon with 10 people just a raid? He was kind of cooking with that, though. He was kind of cooking with that. I've been advocating for that for a bit. Halfway through every patch, there should be a 10-man raid. That would be sweet. It could be a 10-man really, really hard dungeon. They're kind of the same thing. Or it could be like a little 10-man raid. I think that'd be fun. I don't think 10-man should have 2 tanks, though. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I feel like 1 tank, 2 healer, 10-man makes the most sense to me. I don't think you'd be able to make interesting tank mechanics in a 10-man. Like, I don't know. Like, why are there 2 tanks in there? Just make it hard to do for 1. Max, are you testing the heroic Howlfall dungeon on alpha? I already did that, I think.
Sanguini depth 10 man. Yeah, Max. Now even the second tank had nothing to do in 10-man heroic groups. Or heroic in general. Yee. This guy's just yapping at us. Yeah, I'm leaned all the way the fuck back right now. I kind of wanted to make a Cata character today, but then I realized the work that would go into that, and I just want to sit here. You know? I just want to fucking sit here, man. No, even the level boost. That sounds like too much work. I've said before that we need more mechanically hard content for groups of 5 or lower, like a 5-man Mage Tower or something, and then 2 weeks later they said that Delve 13 would be Mage Tower hard. Yeah. I mean, Dorky, actually, I said this on the podcast the other day. Where every single season when they have Mythic Zeros at the beginning, they should make one of the Mythic Zeros have a hard mode variant that's like a little bit more challenging with better loot. That would be fucking really fun and sweet. That was my idea too. All I want is solo queue till +8 so I don't get rejected. If you can't get into a +8, there's some other shit going on, probably. Does anyone have that graph of like Mythic Plus runs done? I kind of want to see that again. If you are now below 510 eye level, it's hard to get into a +9. Wouldn't that also be part of the issue with uncapped Crest, though? Like, if you were required to just spam Crest cap for, like, 2 full weeks to get full gear, anyone who didn't do that would just be unable to play the game, and that's extremely unfun and time-consuming. Yeah. Well, I'm only getting a bunch of yeahs. What happened to everyone earlier being like, it should have been uncapped? You know? On Growl's stream, we learned that the best way to get into groups is to just lie and say 3k IO on main. Oh, that is a good idea. Dude, lying goes hard as fuck. Look at this Kendrick and Drake beef. Like, there's been a decent amount of things that both of them said that are just fucking made up. But, like, if you can't prove it either way, it's just like, who cares? You hear stories about people, like, you're not supposed to lie on your application, but, like, someone did that at one point. Like, what's going to happen if you lie on your app at a company and they find out? Okay, you just don't work there? Sick. Okay, sounds like I'm suggesting that you all lie on your resume. That's probably not the angle. Like,
I don't generally think that's true, but like people have done it and they get jobs, and then like if you don't get caught, then you're just chilling, you know? But also don't do that, I think. I've thought about that before. Like, let's just imagine the entire video game industry crashes and I no longer have a job and I have to, like, get a real job. So I go and, like, pull up and apply to McDonald's, right? And then I'm like, what do I write on my application that would make what I've done for the last however long sound the most professional? You know? Like, I wouldn't write video game raid leader guy or gamer. I would write something to do with leadership, like, I don't know, I just fucking make something up. Project leader. Maybe McDonald's would hire me. Co-owner in the biggest esports org in the world goes hard. I don't think TL's the biggest esports org, is it? But also, in this theoretical scenario where the video game industry crashes, would being the co-owner of TL even matter? Wouldn't that almost be like a negative thing? Because it would probably die in that scenario, right? So I would be former co-owner of a company that died. I don't know. That probably doesn't go super hard. At this point, I don't think the video game industry could die. I think it's too big. All right? And I think because the at the highest level, the publishing level of video games, they make fucking hella money. Video games won't go away unless the government bans it or something. Okay, I could see that being... I could see the wrong people being in power and the country getting more and more stupid, and then eventually someone like goes on this... Or some like religious group comes in who like has a deep influence in politics for some stupid fucking reason, and then they'll be like, we think video games are the reason that there's violence in this country, and then they just like ban them all or something like that. I could see like a little bit more crazy version alternate history where something like that happens. Yeah, you're right though. It's the most lucrative industry, so like lobbying would probably make that not happen. Gamers got upset when they were asked to make a PSN account. What will they do if they try to take their game away entirely? True. Although I'm on like the total other side of that. Something that Korea does is like to make an account with a Korean game, you have to provide your Korean social security number. The idea behind this is to like reduce botting and I'm sure a bunch of other things. And it's to a lot of people that sounds very invasive and they don't want to give away that kind of information. But that's something that I'm actually okay with. Like if they did that and it meant that there was less botting,
people actually acted like normal humans, because if they got banned from a game, it would be extremely hard for them to get back into it. So, you know, they wouldn't act like... There's a lot of people who are very normal IRL that just turn into demons online because there's no consequences, right? Like, I would generally be down for that, I think. But I know a lot of people would not be. I'm against it, but I see your point. It's not irrational. Look at that. We just had like a decent conversation on the internet. I disagree, but I understand where you're coming from. I wonder how many times you see that in the Twitter reply section of anything. You go into Twitter, people are not logging on Twitter to have their minds changed or to broaden their perspective. I disagree with what you're saying, but I'll fight you to the death for your right to tell such lies. Bro, what the hell? Max, have you done some dragon flying in Halifall? Yeah. Why is the YouTube stream title Yep and on Twitch it's No? Why isn't it Nope? It's different titles because on Twitch, apparently someone in my guild went live with the title Yep today, so my chat accused me of stealing his title, so I had to change it. But I forgot to change it on YouTube, and I'm not going to either, because he's not streaming on YouTube, so it's mine. It's my title now. But why isn't it Nope? I don't want it to. Rare YouTube chat read. Oh my god, he reads here. Guys, I read YouTube. Why do you guys act like when I read a YouTube chat thing, I don't even point it out that it's like weird? You have more self-respect than that, you know? I fucking read that shit all the time. Probably because it's not on the screen. Yeah, I don't know if I can add it to the screen. I don't... Maybe someone has a chat thing working where it shows both combined. That'd be pretty crazy. Pretty sure that's against the rules. I don't fucking care. Ban me. Be the fucking weirdest thing to ban someone over. Alright, I just realized I'm hungry. We need a video to react to. Help me out, chat. Probably not this one. You want to watch this again, chat? Dude, this would be my punishment. Every time you guys say some weird shit, I'm just going to make you watch this again. Every time. Okay. The Tettles changes. Alright, let's watch the Tettles video. Tettlers? Tettles. He started it with I. Alright, one second. Let me make some food, though. Dude, do you guys want to see Reptar be a good dog? One second. Here. Oi. All right, here we go. Hey, buddy, come here. Come here, Avatar. Sit. Sit. Down. Oh, he's being so good. Watch this. Paw. Oh, he gave paw. He gave paw. He gave paw. Dude, he gets so fucking hype when he gives paw. All right, 1 second. I can go give him a treat. Why is my microwave all, microphone? What a day. What a day today is. It's a day. What a day. Wait, is he reacting to himself from a year ago talking about what's wrong with affixes? Or is he... That would be fucking incredible. I wouldn't even be mad. Killjoy TTV Max, I subbed your YouTube. Yay. Dude, Reptar's such a cutie. I wonder what he does when he hears his name on stream. Reptar. Zero reaction. Reptar. Not one. He's locked the fuck in at being a dog. All right, my food just got ready. All right, be right back. So I never heard it clarified. Is Max still with Liquid?
What are you talking about? Why would you need that clarified? All right, here we go. How affixes should change in Mythic Plus.
We back. This is my yearly complaint about affixes. If you can see right here, about a year ago, I complained about affixes as well. Talked about what's wrong with affixes in Mythic Plus. And at this point, there was a lot of community sentiment and a lot of discussion talking about how affixes felt like they were too burdensome on the healer. Since then, those burdensome affixes on the healer have largely been removed. You know, Quaking got removed, but Grievous got removed and Explosive got removed. Those were the two dominant ones that were like, oh, these are healer affixes. They have to do the entire thing. And now we're only kind of left with Bursting as like the dominant healer affix, but people are still complaining about affixes, myself included. And so today we're going to be kind of talking about what's wrong with affixes. And something that I actually talked about in this video back in like February of last year is kind of something that I want to show off at the...
One second, completely unrelated to the video. How do you guys feel about pita bread? In general. Goes fucking crazy, right? You want to know something else that's funny? Is the first time I was ever introduced to pita bread, I didn't know what pita bread was, and I referred to it as flatbread because of Subway. Anyways, back to the video.
Very beginning of this video again.
This was like 20 years ago, but you know what it is.
Just so it kind of resonates with people and kind of, again, restate what my position is as to what I think affixes should do in dungeons.
To remove one of these rows of affixes, make sure that you're consolidating down the dungeon experience into, like, I feel like you should be playing a large portion of your dungeon experience should be the dungeon itself. Not half of the experience is the dungeon, and then other half of the experience is making sure that you're set up.
Incredible reaction content down here from reacting to his old self.
For dealing with these affixes. Because...
Okay, so being set up for dealing with affixes, I would argue, is still way too problematic in the current state of the game. And I don't want this to come off the wrong way, but I did get a really, really salty after having a key session during Bolstering where it was like, this is so unfun, you know, this is a really unfun affix to deal with, and then some people were like, oh yeah, just delete all affixes and stuff like that. So let's talk about what affixes point in the game is, what maybe my solution to affixes would be, and kind of talk about I guess maybe the progression of affixes over the course of Dragonflight. So after this video was created, we've actually had a lot that's changed with affixes. First and foremost, Explosive, Quaking, and Grievous got removed. Raging got reworked. And then there was some new affixes that got added, including, you know, Afflicted, Incorporeal, and Entangling. Entangling, pretty good. Afflicted and Incorporeal, though, continue to...
Why is Entangling good? Because it doesn't do anything. Weird! Weird.
More or less the same issue, where you're not necessarily playing the dungeon, but something that I said here is being set up well for the affixes going into the dungeon, and you still have to be set up well for the affixes going into the dungeon, especially with Incorporeal and Afflicted, you could argue, where there's a lot of spots where Incorporeal and Afflicted are both probably the most important part of the dungeon, where if you don't have a multitude of like off dispels in your group, you're just going to have Afflicted go off, and if you don't have like the right comp or like people paying attention to Incorporeal, you're going to have Incorporeal go off, and the punishment value is maybe just a little bit too high, not even a little bit, a lot of bit too high with these. And so, you know, whenever we went back and looked at how affixes were in the past, I think they've definitely moved in the right direction in the past year, but I still think they're too impactful in the current state of the game. And I think that this is actually really, really easy to tell that they're too impactful, because whenever you look at how people, I mean, just look at the community perception of this, where it's like, unironically though, what affixes are fun? Any of them? Can we just get rid of them at this point? Like, people are literally so tired of affixes. It's just like, delete affixes. We need fun affixes. Delete affixes. There's no affix that's fun. What Sadist decided that it should be Bolstering Fortified. And
Only
there's a lot of people
seasonals are
too
fun.
That now, since the dungeon squish, aren't going to even be engaging with like the level 9 affix row. Instead of actually going over that level 10 barrier that gives you that third affix, I've seen a lot of people just being like, I'm just going to do 9s for the rest of my life. I get the best gear from 9s anyways, and I don't have to deal with bolstering ever again. And that's like, I think that that's problematic. I think that, you know, Mythic Plus is fun. And
I mean, that is a really good thing that you have that choice now. It's great. It's one of the best parts of the new system, but it's just really telling. Like, it's a temporary solution that you are not really encouraged to do them, and like only people who are doing the very, very highest keys will have to do those affixes, or maybe once to get the portals. But it should say a lot that the game is significantly better when you remove one affix, and people will really want to do that.
I think that pushing keys is really fun. And so whenever you're adding an extra layer of friction on top of that, that's like really not fun, that's particularly problematic. And so like, dude, I think the best way of describing this is like, look at the history of bolstering. So bolstering has existed since the inception of Mythic Plus back in Legion. And if you look at the initial iteration of bolstering, it would...
People forget, man. People forget bolster is still so bad, but like insane how bad it used to
bolster
be.
Allies within 45 yards on death, permanently increasing their maximum health and damage done by 20%.
And it worked
maximum
on
health
bosses.
and damage done by 20%, which is crazy. And then eventually that got changed to 30 yards and increasing their maximum health only by 15%, but the damage done still be 20% and it still stacks. Actually, no. So yeah. Okay, so that was exactly the change. And then after that, it then got nerfed to be only their... Okay, they changed the stacking in 9.1.5. So 9.1, it was 30 yards. And then 9.1.5, they changed the stacking and how stacking works on it. Now it stacks like Iron Fur, where it's independent stacks and they'll fall off eventually. Stuff like that to allow them to be okay. And then they changed them to no longer affect bosses eventually. And that was, you know, continuing to improve in the right direction. And then in 10.1, in Season 2, like we were talking about, they removed the health gain on bolstering as well.
And it's still the worst affix by far.
In Season 4, I'm still tweeting that bolstering sucks and is unfun. And so clearly this is an issue not necessarily about, you know, the history of bolstering or the history of bursting or the history of any other affix that's been around since the inception, but it's more of an issue of, you know, what's wrong with affixes just as a whole. And we can kind of take a look at, like, you know, the affix rows and kind of talk about this just a little bit. So what's the point of affixes? The point of affixes are this, from Blizzard's perspective. They're to create friction with the players. They're to change the weeks to make sure that they're not feeling the same. And they're to give players just a little bit of a challenge. I think by and large, they accomplish those goals by Blizzard's perspective. The problem
They do, yeah.
is that they don't accomplish them in the right ways. And Blizzard's kind of always been kind of tinkering with affixes since their inception. I don't think very rarely do we go an entire expansion without them messing with affixes in some capacity, whether it be when you're getting affixes, you know, like seasonal affixes, adding and dropping seasonal affixes and changing a bunch of different stuff. Blizzard very rarely goes an entire expansion without tinkering with affixes in some capacity. But I think that they're still kind of missing the mark as to why players give such resounding negative feedback towards affixes. And I watched actually like a developer interview about a different video game. And they were kind of talking about
Interesting.
how, as a game developer, you have to have that added layer of friction, and sometimes your burden and responsibility is going to be to, like, you know, make the players, instead of like blame other players for mistakes and like, yo, that guy sucks and that's why we didn't time that key. Instead, sometimes have like an unfair element to it where it's like, oh, okay, the affix was just out there to get you, and there's not really much you can do about that. And that, oh man, that sucks. Like, we go again. But I think with affixes,
I kind of hear what he's saying. I think we should listen to that more in context from the actual interviewer. I think I know what he's getting at, but you'd need to hear a lot more context.
in like an infinitely scaling system, Mythic Plus doesn't necessarily need that, right? You can always just do a higher key until you're getting one shot by something.
Like, if there's no element of randomness in your game and there's always... you can outplay it or you don't, then it's finger pointy, and they just would rather have the burden be people be mad at the game than mad at each other. There's probably some truth to that.
So you don't need that necessarily that much additional friction on top of what keystone levels and in an infinitely scaling system provides. And so for Blizzard's perspective, you know, I think that they do kind of accomplish their goals, but I think they accomplish them the wrong way. I will say something that affixes do right. They make the weeks feel unique. And I think that that's actually important, and that's something that I would love to keep moving forward, I think.
True. The whole... The Scorched Earth delete all affixes. There's just... you just zone in and it's just the key. As I've said before, I think that would get old in 2 weeks.
You would do 2 weeks of keys where there's 0 affixes, and then it would just be like, I think the variety they cause is positive. They're just like what Tettles was saying, though. Is they're just like, there has to be a better way to do that.
That is like, whenever I'm talking about this video, that is a main goal and probably a main priority that Blizzard should continue to maintain, is like making sure that the weeks continue to feel unique. Now, the issue with affixes is kind of the same problem that we had back in Season 1. They're just too impactful, and you end up playing the affixes, or you end up, worrying about like what the affixes do inside of the dungeons as opposed to how to play the dungeon itself. And so if you look at these affixes here, bolstering in very specific spots, and we had this in Everbloom last season, where the Lashers went the entire season doing on-death affixes. And that meant that Everbloom on weeks that had bursting or bolstering was nearly unplayable. And from Blizzard's perspective, I don't expect them to actually be able to know what mobs are going to be really cringe with on-death affixes every single week.
I don't know about... Wait, I don't know about that.
I don't expect them to, want or need to like spend developer time to like go and fix these things. I will say, though, that if they're going to have something like bolstering, they're going to have to make sure that it's perfect, because stuff like bolstering sucks.
Like, okay, I don't develop games, but I can tell you in a dungeon, of all of the mobs that have ever bolstered that shouldn't have bolstered, you can tell the first time you're running the dungeon that you're like, that mob probably shouldn't do that. And like in WoW's history, they nerf those mobs to not have affixes work on them like all the time. Like it'll be like a bunch of little blobs or something like that clearly are not intended to bolster. And Everbloom was a weird mix because they weren't like irrelevant neutral mobs or like really low health mobs. They actually have like more health than you'd expect. But there's just a million of them, and the reality is you end up pulling those, which are relatively not dangerous, at least to the group. They're kind of dangerous to the tank. With a bunch of things that are dangerous to the whole group, where it was like clearly really problematic. So like outside of Everbloom, I feel like it's, in WoW's history at least, generally speaking, whenever it's like on the PTR, sometimes it doesn't even make it to live, but like on the PTR, just the first time you see a dungeon, the ability to identify when something should not have affixes caused is an instant feeling. It's not like something that takes you a long time to be like, I think it's like, no, usually it's like very blatantly obvious. I think Everbloom kind of was, and they didn't do it.
Need to like spend developer time to like go and fix these things. I will say, though, that if they're going to have something like bolstering, they're going to have to make sure that it's perfect, because stuff like bolstering sucks. But then whenever you get things like Everbloom, I would say that's unacceptable. And Blizzard, I think, just generally does a really good job with Mythic Plus. I think Mythic Plus is sick. But I think that bolstering is, frankly, just completely unacceptable. And the same thing goes for Incorporeal and Afflicted, where there are a decent amount of compositions. And I made a video about Incorporeal and Afflicted because I was just so salty last season. But I don't want this to be about a very specific affix, because I think it's not an affix issue. I think it's a systematic problem where all affixes have a problem, where Incorporeal and Afflicted, if you don't have a composition or you don't have players that are good enough to be able to deal with these affixes, it's just nearly impossible. And they've nerfed Afflicted again, and they nerfed Afflicted to be, I want to say it's 12-second long cast now. That way there's a lot more leeway for you to actually get 2 dispels on the Afflicted if you're just one person who has a dispel in your group. Say your healer is the only person with a dispel in your group, they're able to get a second dispel on the Afflicted a lot easier, where before your dispel cooldown's an 8-second thing, 8-second CD. It was.
I'm just gonna pause me. I was waiting for him to elaborate more, but he's just explaining what Afflicted does. I don't think it's a surprise that Incorporeal and Afflicted were released at the same time that they got rid of healer affixes, right? Like they got rid of the affixes that were generally deemed like healers' jobs. Like those are entangling too. Entangling, Incorporeal, and Afflicted all are trying to involve the whole group. But when you do things in a Mythic Plus setting, the simplest thing to do is to usually end up assigning something to one person so everyone else doesn't have to think about it. It's game design of how they want you to play versus how at a high level you do play. Like, I know there was a couple times I was doing pug keys with Incorporeal and Afflicted, actually, where I, as a monk player, like, I was having more fun because I knew, like, in a pug, in a high-level group, yeah, you assign everything to the healer and you just don't even worry about it. But, like, in a lower-level group, like, you're kind of a psycho for not talenting your Dispel as a DPS when you can just, like, save the group because, like, some random pug healer just isn't going to do that. And I found it fun to, like, mouse over dispel those while doing the key, right? And I think that's what Blizzard's trying to get out of you, is they're trying to have it feel like a cooperative experience to deal with those things. Where they went wrong is the high-end community really doesn't want to do that. They just want to have one person deal with it. And also there's multiple classes that couldn't interact with those things even kinda, which kind of throws that whole argument out the window. So I think they were just like poorly implemented. But it was kind of like a rub against the community, because the community was like, these fucking healer affixes. But it turns out most people aren't healers and they like healers. They don't want to deal with affixes, right? So like Blizzard's trying to get you to deal with affixes, and they're like, nah, just have the healers do it. But like the reason they like that is because they don't have to do it, right? But like now they're like, okay, all of you get involved with this. And people are like, I don't like affixes at all, right? So that's why these were kind of disliked a lot more.
Second cast, and so now it's a 12-second cast, and so now you have a little bit more leeway. And these are positive changes that they're making to the affixes, but I think fundamentally the issue with the affixes is that they're too hard and they're too punished. Where Incorporal and Afflicted, it's not about the duration of the cast time on Incorporal nor Afflicted. It's actually about like compositional setup beforehand of zoning into the dungeon and having to make sure that you're playing that correctly. And same goes with Bolstering, where it's like sometimes it's about compositional setup, but it's actually kind of about the dungeon more so than anything else.
Well, that's always a rub, right? Like there's a boss in the new expansion that fears you, or a mini boss, and it reminds me of like Mist of Tyrna Scythe, right, where they have you get feared. And the reason why is there are classes in this game that have abilities to get out of fears and others that don't. And like if they add stuff like that into a dungeon, it makes Tremor Totem feel better. It makes the new warrior like mass enrage removal, like, or mass like fear removal through the enraging shout. I don't even know what the fuck that's called. Like they want to have dungeons where those classes feel valued, because like that utility usually doesn't feel valued. There's a reason that there's a lot of bosses that have shield damage phases in the expansion, because there are multiple classes that do more damage to things with shields, you know, just shit like this, right? But like, is the trade-off, is the punishment your entire group getting feared and dying? Like, I don't know, it's weird.
And it's actually about like, you know, the awareness of knowing what you can and can't pull, and knowing kiting patterns and stuff like that, and knowing when you can and can't get out of the dungeon. And for Sanguine, it's kind of a similar thing, where it's like, you know, it's not necessarily an issue of like the difficulty of Sanguine. It's more of an issue of like the player's ability to be able to move bombs out of Sanguine. It's the tank's knowledge about the pack to be able to kite correctly. It's bringing disrupt style effects to be able to knock mobs out of Sanguine, and having the awareness to know that I should be taunting this mob out of Sanguine. And it's less like, it's more about like the players and, you know, the strain that's put onto the players, as opposed to how well the affixes are balanced. Because actually I think the affixes, and if you look at the TGP, they're relatively well balanced against one another. You know, they're maybe within like a key level delta, probably more like a half key level delta from like top to bottom for affixes, which is fine. I don't think
That's actually interesting to think about. If like the easiest week versus the hardest week, do you think that the difference in that, I don't know if anyone actually knows the answer to this. I mean, you would, right? You'd be able to look at timed runs on live, I guess, and see where, but that's not really, because there's push weeks and stuff. Like there are people who intentionally play all week on weeks that are considered push weeks, and they avoid weeks that are less fun. So like the information would be skewed for sure. But I know that always people are like, this isn't a push week, but then like one team is playing the game anyway because they're degenerates, and like they're timing new high keys just fine. So he's probably right.
Any means, nor will it ever be perfect.
It's at least 2 key levels of difficulty easier. I don't think there's a single affix where what you just said is true, where the difference between one affix and another is literally 2 key levels. Ain't no way. Even bolstering.
Perfect. But in general, I don't think affixes are balanced poorly, so I don't think it's a
2 key levels is a massive number.
Balancing issue. I think it's more of like a design space problem, where it just feels too unfun, and then you end up like sitting in these situations where you're just not enjoying playing the affixes, and you have a lot of people, like we saw on Twitter, that were just kind of talking about like how affixes were super unfun. I actually don't think many affixes are that bad, and they're sitting there to make friction and make the weeks feel unique. But I want to see a massive overhaul. And for me, whenever I'm thinking of like
a massive overhaul is undeniable. It needs to happen. If not for any other reason than the reason that affixes were created was to provide friction and variety, and it does that in a way that just annoys people. And there has to be a way where that's not true. There has to be, or you have to try to find one.
like a affix over.
When people don't put keys on the PTR, put affixes on the keys on purpose, that's a problem. When you have people doing one key level that even gives you slightly worse loot out of your vault because there's no affix and it's by that big of a margin, like clearly something is missing.
Just frankly have too many affixes, or maybe it's just that we have too many negative affixes. It's more just like we don't need that many negative affixes. I think Tyrannical and Fortified are always going to be balancing problems. I don't think that are necessarily within the scope of this video. I think the affix 2 and the affix 3 stuff, like the 5 and the 10 rows, are definitely the bigger scope of this video, where I think it's like having...
Yeah, Tyrannical and Fortified is weird. I think that's the one thing that most people would want, because it like gives you two separate things you're pushing, you know, like Tyrannical and Fortified weeks. My only issue with Tyrannical and Fortified has always been the same. It's in dungeons, gameplay-wise, there's just an ideal amount of time you want to be fighting trash, and there's an ideal amount of time you want to be fighting bosses. And Fortified does both of those perfectly. Fortified makes the trash last longer, which is ideal, and it makes the bosses last shorter, which is ideal. Tyrannical, the trash often... Sometimes it's fine because you pull bigger because it's Tyrannical. That's okay. But, like, generally speaking, the packs are over faster, and that feels worse. Unless you're at very, very high levels. And then high-level Tyrannical is just awful. Like dungeon bosses simply are not interesting enough to be done for more than, like, 2.5 minutes at a time. They're just not. They're too simple. It's just repetitive. Like anytime you're doing a dungeon boss, like the most extreme examples are like 7 minutes with like ad phases and stuff. But like even the ones that are normal fucking bosses with none of that shit, you end up fighting for 4 minutes. Bro, fighting a dungeon boss for 4 minutes is insanely bad. Like, it's so boring.
2 rows of like these detrimental affixes is always going to be a major dilemma for just making sure that the dungeons are fun. And I think that whenever it's like creating this friction makes the dungeons unfun, then we really have to reassess. And for Blizzard's perspective, they probably need to reassess like what the affixes are realistically doing. And I would love for Blizzard to actually kind of try to experiment with affixes. The M Plus team, I generally think, does a great job of making sure that Mythic Plus is like accessible to a lot of players and to make it pretty fun. And I think that's something that they did this season with the Dungeon Squish is awesome. I think that opening up M0 as a more relevant part of the end game is very good for a large portion of the player base. It's something that like accessibility
super
to M0
huge.
And to be able to do timerless keys and just like the state of the season as a whole, I think is pretty good. But I think just in general for like the players who want to play the dungeons and continue to like actually push past that level 10 barrier, affixes are just always going to, not always, affixes in their current state are going to always be a problem. And that's why I think that Blizzard should be looking to experiment with some affix overhauls. It seems like the M Plus team generally has a lot more leeway to kind of experiment and try new things. And even if this does require like a couple of seasons of like testing and playing around with new affix combinations or kind of trying new stuff, I think that would actually be sick, because we've seen the affix and the M Plus team do a lot of cool stuff lately. I think one of the biggest things that we got out of this expansion in Dragonflight was rotating dungeons every single season. And I think that was actually just a home run. Like that is actually one of the biggest positives that I think has come out of this expansion is rotating dungeons. I think that
100%.
Blizzard just did a spectacular job with that. And I think that if they really start taking a hack at affixes and think outside of the box, I think that they could actually reach and accomplish something that's super sick. But again, I think that affixes should stay. I'm not one of these people who's like an affix hater, and it just needs to be removed. But it's more just like they need to create a challenge that's a little bit different. This guy says right here, why can't they create a fun challenge? They end up creating an annoying one. The dungeons themselves are already annoying, and you're already up against the friction of like the timer. You're up against the friction of the dungeon level. Like, is this actually doable? Am I going to get one shot? You're up against all these issues with the dungeon itself, and so then adding like a multiplicative variable like affixes on top of that, and particularly like really punishing ones sometimes, like bolstering and like sanguine and stuff like that, it's too much. Anyways, those are my thoughts. Again, I thought it was kind of funny that I just made one a year ago. They actually kind of reworked affixes, and then we're
Yeah, I was about to say they have actually done some things to change it, but I think the next time this should be addressed is probably, yeah. If you guys don't remember, in the middle of Dragonflight, there was like a couple month period where like you could not have a stream without talking about affixes. Every single one. It was like the only thing people talked about. Then it kind of died down for a bit. It still kind of happens for a while, but it's definitely one of those just big, this clearly needs to be looked at things. But we'll have to wait till that
still
happens.
having the exact same conversation where I'm kind of still bringing up the exact same points. I think there's too many affix rows. I would be looking to chop one. Again, I like affixes.
Oh yeah, I think that might be my favorite suggestion. I don't know what affixes stay, but just straight up slicing off one affix forever. Just keys have Tyran and one other affix. Just sounds like they're still accomplishing everything they want to accomplish with variety and friction, and it just makes it less bad. They would just be just better.
I think they should stay. I don't think they should be removed. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your video. Great rest of your
Great rest of your
video. Great rest of your day. Goodbye. I didn't mean
Let's
great rest of your
go.
video. Whatever.
Let's go. Love awkward video endings. I do those too. Let's go. Wait, I'm actually interested in seeing who's doing damage right now. Let's see. Who are the dam doers? Rep Paladin and Dev Evoker. This is good. Dev Evoker needs to be doing this kind of damage. What's sad is that Augmentation is still doing significantly more. Dude, this is like worst case scenario where Dev, you're like, why would you ever play a Dev over an Aug? Unless you already have two Augs in the raid, of course. And it's like, well, when they're the best class in the game. Like, even then, that's not true. Two Augmentation Evokers being played properly are so much better than any other single DPS class in the game. It's not even close. It would be like the bar would be so much higher than this. But playing it optimally is usually not true. Like, I bet actually playing Devastation right now is better than Aug in raid if what you do in raid is just what a lot of evokers do, because it's the less cringe way of playing the less cringe way of playing Aug is they just buff the like top 4 DPS. That's simple. Just see who's doing top 4 DPS, buff them all the time. Sounds good. That's what some people do. That's actually probably would make Evoker more fun to play if that was like designed how you were supposed to do it, just like a dungeon. But that's, you know, that's not the optimal way. The optimal way is to buff the people doing the most damage every single time you cast Ebb and Might, which is very complicated but extremely OP. But yeah, so Devastation zoning. Arms is doing pretty good. That's pure single. Let's look at something weird. Two target, kind of a weird two target fight. Okay, multi-dotting in P1. Shadow Priest looks better. Echo of Notharian's a weird fight. Why is Mark's... Oh, does Mark's like turbo blast the ads in the last phase or something? That's the only thing I could see it being that much higher. Like just crazy burst. Okay. Oh, Dryny's mad in chat. Let's see what that's all about. Scale Commander Sarkareth. You know what's really interesting is the classes that topped Sarkareth in progression were classes that did really well at going downstairs. They were classes that utilized the downtime to increase their massive, massive burst. So like Unholy DKs, Demonology Warlocks, and other classes. Although if you show boss damage, it probably still shows that, because this is probably just P2 pad. Actually, yeah. Is boss damage actually good at this? Okay, so Unholy DK still does it for that exact reason. And they nerfed Demo's burst, right? Or maybe just Demo's down bad right now or something. Look at all these patters. Windwalker's Giga Pad from the Crane procs. All right, let's look what Dryny's saying. Dryny's saying, look at healer DPS.
Yeah, this class also PIs someone, by the way. And they do all of this damage while just hitting the boss. Woo! Well, or while healing, I mean. Very, very interesting. Very fun. Very good. Very, very good. Dratnos so fucking mad, by the way. Alright, let's look at healing then, too. Because that's what healers are supposed to do, right? Dude, Drinester. Oh, no. H-Pal is up there for a tier 2, gets nuked to the bottom while disc gets unchanged. Yep, stay mad. I mean, it's pretty close. It's like really close. I don't know. Even then, even like top to bottom is what, 40k HPS? 10%-ish. But think about the value you bring to the raid, you know? You're so valuable. Wow. What's the Mythic Plus comp right now? Let's see, Raider.io. Mythic Plus, all run leaderboards. So what? Resto Druid, Shadow Priest, Aug, Fire Mage. Woohoo! Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. 40 EPS. No, they just do 40 EPS for the first pull, and then they zone out. I think for a few pulls sometimes you do it, but they run a healer for the majority of the dungeon. Anything interesting this stream or just yap? What the fuck? Bro, you say that, but the second I stop yapping on every single one of my streams, just thousands of people leave. So that would indicate to you that the yapping is the only thing that's interesting. Damn, someone already timed at 20. Holy fuck. I guess, wait, that's just not in time. I just said timed, but it's just simply not. Where are the keys at? Let's see. Algathar has got an 18. Brackenhide 19. Halls 19. Nelth 18. Oh, Nelth looks hard. I'm assuming that's just due to the change to the chains, which was definitely a good change. Anytime you're doing a dungeon and the majority of the mob count is killed by dungeon mechanics, it's fucking trash. Oh, same thing with Voldemon. Insane to think people are doing the equivalent of 40s on the second week. They're not 40s. They're the equivalent of 30s, yeah. And people are going to gain 10 more eye levels, too. You're going to do multiple key levels higher. What class are you going to main in the War Within? Windwalker, most likely, from the changes. And then I'll play a few other classes. Ret for sure. I'm going to need to see Stormbringer. Maybe Enhance. But Ret is, like, incredibly fun right now. Did I just hear a little roar? Reptar, roar. Reptar, roar. Reptar,
You not want to do it?
Reptar. Hi, buddy. Reptar. Reptar. Reptar.
He sounds so masculine when he does that. When he gets really hyped, he'll go like He wasn't responding because you had spelling errors in your barking. Yeah. Hi, buddy. Reptar, you're so cute. Yeah. Reptar, how do you feel about the Vengeance DH nerfs? Come on, give me something. Dude, someone called him Yaptar. Fucking true. Reptar. Nah, he wants to play. He's done talking. He said I've said all I need to say. Come here, buddy. Come on. What a big boy. So big. I'm torn between sticking with Outlaw or going back to Windwalker in the expansion. The answer is always Windwalker, man. What kind of games are there tonight? New York Knicks versus the Pacers, completely uninteresting. Minnesota Denver game 2, banger. Boston and Florida is happening. Oh, I want to watch that game. All right, we're done yapping. Yeah, we're done yapping for sure. I'll be live again tomorrow. Thanks for being here. Wow, dude, just fucking 4K people. 5K including YouTube. I didn't do a single fucking thing today. That's fucking crazy. Love that. Love yapping. See you guys tomorrow. Gonna yap again. I swear to God I'll do it. See ya.